Shalom and welcome back to the tea table, my friends. Thanks for joining me today. I believe this mini teaching will minister to a few of you that have been having a difficult time hearing the voice of God for some decisions that need to be made. Interesting. The Lord woke me up at 4:30 in the morning to work on this teaching. I was reading about the tent of meeting, or the tabernacle of meeting, also called the tabernacle of the congregation, in Exodus 33:7, and I was amazed that in all reality, the tent of meeting was a portable dwelling place for God's divine presence. What really got my attention was found in verse 9. Whenever Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would descend and stand at the entrance of the tent, and the Lord would speak with Moses. As I was reading about this meeting place, I tried to associate or liken it with my own spiritual life, my devotion time, and my ability to hear from God. When reading about people in the Bible, I would oftentimes sit back and ask myself the question, how did these guys actually hear the voice of God? You know, people like David or Gideon or many of the prophets of old, how did they hear the actual voice of God? Was it like a big screen in their head, or a gut feeling that God was speaking to them, or a warm fuzzy they had about making a decision? One thing for sure, when it came to people like Joshua and having to send an entire army into battle based on what you thought the voice of God was saying, you better be pretty sure who was speaking, or a lot of lives could be lost. I'm not talking about obedience. I'm speaking about hearing. We all know that Joshua and the men of Israel, that their obedience to the plan of God helped them see the victory that they had been promised. Joshua obeyed the command to take the land. He followed God's instructions in crossing the river. He obeyed God's strange plan to defeat the city of Jericho. Though it did not always make sense, Joshua led the people in obedience to God. As a result, they saw great victories. I remembered more than once being obedient to what I thought was God's voice, only to find out it was my own voice being spiritualized and not God's voice at all. I'm not speaking about, okay, God, do you want me to buy that big flat screen television? Or, Lord, do you want me to buy those new tools I've been dreaming about? Or go on that wonderful cruise for 2 weeks? Just recently, I had open heart surgery. More than once I prayed, okay, God, do you want me to go through with this dangerous surgery? Or do you want me to trust you for my complete healing, as you said in your word? Was I being serious? You bet. There was no way that I was looking forward to having my chest cracked open and my heart stopped while the surgeons did what they do best. I was very serious in my praying. Did I hear specifically from the Lord concerning the operation? Not a word. Not a yes or a no. Was I confused? Of course I was. Especially because I hear very clearly from the Lord for other people, and I hear often. I'm sure there are many of you that have been in the same situation. Maybe not the surgery, but really needing to hear from God and not getting anything. So how does all this tie in with Exodus 33:7? It tells us it was Moses' practice to take the tent and pitch it outside the camp some distance away, calling it the tent of meeting. Anyone inquiring of the Lord would go to the tent of meeting outside the camp. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is deconstruct this verse, meaning I'm going to look at it from various perspectives, left to right and right to left, as well as top to bottom and bottom to top. And with all that, I will not add to or subtract from the Word of God. Why would anyone have a need to inquire anything of the Lord? Well, that's easy. because you need his direction and you want to hear his voice on an important matter in your life. I don't know about you, but I sometimes find it easier to hear the voice of God when I'm alone and apart from the busy schedules and programs of the rat race that we call progress and the hectic programs of family life. This may have been a reason why the meeting place of God was pitched outside the camp some distance away, as well as because the presence of God is a holy presence and he didn't want it to be mingled with the camp of the Israelites. You know, it's always a good idea to have a quiet place where you can meet with God and not have all the distractions and clutter that are associated with life. Another thing I noticed about getting alone with God was it was Moses' practice. In other words, it was his normal way of meeting with God, or this preparation to meet with God was a recurrence in his life. Not that it was a dull, ordinary, mundane, same old, but it was an exciting, life-changing event that he was looking forward to. Moses wasn't meeting with his working buddy, he was meeting with God, and he was accustomed to getting results from his meetings. How do I know that Moses got results? Because Exodus 33:9 tells us, when Moses entered the tent, the pillar of cloud would come down and stand at the doorway of the tent while God spoke with Moses. This isn't a case of someone saying, I spoke with God today. Oh, really? Look at verse 10. Whenever the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the entrance to the tent, they all stood and worshipped, each at the entrance to their tent. That tells me that the presence of God was evident with physical manifestations that everyone could see. Moses, or anyone, that includes you, my friend, needing to inquire of the Lord, would get alone to a quiet place, away from the hustle and bustle of life, and there they would meet with God, and it was there that they would get results, because God still desires to meet with his children. If it wasn't so, why would we be told in Psalm 59:10, my God in his steadfast love will meet me? Not only is getting alone with God a great idea, but it was the very heart of Jesus himself. Mark 1:35, very early in the morning while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Matthew 14:23, after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. Luke 6:12, one of those days Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. You know, I just read something that said, obedience is the only visual proof that you believe what God says. And with that, I leave you with this, my friends. Investing your time alone with God will have the best return on your investment. Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha. Ye'er Adonai panavilecha vihunecha. Yisa Adonai panavilecha ve'yesemlecha shalom. The Lord bless you and protect you. The Lord cause the light of his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn all of his attention to you and give to you the peace of God. God bless you, my friends, and I'll see you again next week at the tea table.